So we may get out of here really early because what else is there left to say? Thank you, Guido, from me for your vision in creating GMF and your long role as the fund's leader, and frankly, for the last 17 years as my mentor and chief advisor. It's been very important. And thank you, Mark, for not just finding us great buildings, but a lot of other things, a lot of great contributions you do to GMF. It's wonderful to have Ambassador Murphy and Ambassador Kimmett here. Bob was on the board for many years at GMF and was the guy that, it's an American phrase that some of you would know, would snap the towel when he thought I was getting out of line on something. And I appreciate it because it was really, really useful. So it's great to have you here tonight. I want to thank all of our current and past board members who are here tonight. One of GMF's strengths has been the excellent people who have served on our board. And to be honest, Guido and Mark were very nice to me, but I'm not the one that has come up with the ideas. 99% of all of the ideas that GMF has implemented have come from our board members or our other staff. And finally, I want to thank the State Secretary Kampeter and all of our other friends from Germany who are with us tonight. Germany is in our name, but it's also in our organizational DNA. We are very honored by the presence of so many prominent leaders from this country here tonight, so thank you all. And finally, I want to thank all of the partners and friends and MMF alumni who are here tonight. GMF is really a different place because it's, frankly, in some ways a platform where others can think, plan, do innovative things. And I'm not going to start naming all of the partners who are here tonight, corporations, foundations, think tanks, but so many of you, we've been able to do good things because you've brought good ideas to us. So my task tonight in the next, say, 5 minutes or so, maybe 10, is to speak a bit about GMF's future. Where are we going during these complicated times? What will be our priorities and goals, or more fundamentally, what do we think we can really do at a time when so many are announcing the end of transatlantic cooperation and talking about a reorientation from the Atlantic to the Pacific in both the US and in Europe? Several people have talked about the complications in the relationship and the changes, but let me just say that concerns about the viability of the transatlantic partnership are not new. In 1972, Willy Brandt was both trying to convince Americans that Ostpolitik didn't mean pulling away from the United States. He was also very concerned by what in one of the notes he called the American preoccupation with Asia, and the fact that too many intellectual resources were being focused on both the war in Southeast Asia and also the development of ties with China. In 1985, when I made my very first visit to Germany, thanks to the Adenauer Stiftung, I came to Berlin and I witnessed one of the largest anti-nuclear parades, demonstrations ever. And I have to say, the United States did not figure in a positive way in that demonstration. For those of us who were maybe came from the left but had been sort of wooed a bit by Ronald Reagan, to find Ronald Reagan used as a swear word was a little bit of a shock to us. In 1995, when I started this job, on our first round of meetings, all Guido and I heard about was, why isn't the United States paying attention to Europe? Why is Bill Clinton off focused on NAFTA and this and that? Why isn't he doing more here? In 2002, well, we won't talk about 2002, 2003, but there were certainly problems in the relationship. And so today we talk about a pivot to Asia and the challenges, but to me it's, in some ways, it's a very familiar pattern that we've gone through many times. Nonetheless, the transatlantic relationship may have some significant problems now that it didn't have in the past. The State Secretary referred to the economic crisis in Europe, but also the looming problems that could bedevil the United States in the near future. If you look around Europe, and frankly you look at the United States, real resources and real capacities have been reduced for both hard power and soft power alike. One thing that has happened over the last 4 or 5 years is that the European Union and the United States might have been a model for the rest of the world pre-2008. I'm not sure that they are anymore. There's a set of emerging powers that challenge US-European dominance in international institutions, or are simply not that interested in working with the transatlantic community on the issues that we think are important. Over the past few months, I've been to China, India, Brazil, other parts of Asia, and even closer to home, Turkey. You find more and more skepticism about the value of working with the United States and Europe and how constructive it is, even though obviously there is a great deal of cooperation that still goes on. And then there's a whole set of new challenges that are occurring just at a time when we have fewer resources and maybe less political will than ever before. The dramatic changes in the Middle East, in Syria, Yemen, even places like Egypt and elsewhere, that will really test our future. Central Asia, not just Afghanistan, could be a major problem in the next few years. China is both a huge opportunity for us and a huge challenge as it tries to define its own role as an economic and military power. And then you have something that most of us ignore, but it's the enormous growth that's occurring already in Africa at a time when it still has very weak governments that don't always support this new wealth. Finally, there's a new generation in both Europe and the United States that don't have the same transatlantic orientation that most of us had. Americans may still spend a year in Europe, but the big trend and the big influence for most American university students is on their campuses. They spend every day with hundreds of Asians. Last year, there were 724,000 foreign students in the United States in colleges. 157,000 of them came from China, 103,000 from India, 73,000 from South Korea, okay, Canada with 27,000, Taiwan with 24,000, Saudi Arabia with 22,000, Japan with 21,000. Number 11 is Nepal with 10,000, and number 12 is Germany with 9,458 students. When I was an undergraduate, it was very common to have French, German, Italian students in your classes. But because of the Erasmus program, which has been a huge success, and who can fault European parents if they don't want to pay tuitions in the United States? I know I'd love to be able to send my children to European universities and not have to pay $50,000, $60,000 a year. But there's been something lost. And I know through Guido, I met a whole generation of people in the 1950s who came to the United States to go to Yale, to go to Davidson, to go to Princeton, to go to Harvard. and I'm not sure you're going to see that same generation. In our Transatlantic Trends poll this year, for the first time, young Americans overwhelmingly see Asia as more important than Europe. And not just young Americans, it really goes up into the 40s of people. So what will we do given these challenges? Now, we recognize that we're very tiny and very small. We don't have the resources that the State Secretary has. We don't even have the resources that the ambassador has. We're little, tiny. We've got to be smart. One of the things that we are doing, though, is a small project that really tries to address those challenges in the United States and Europe to get our own economic world together, or to at least make both the Americans better informed about what's going on in Europe and the Europeans better informed about what's going on in the United States. And one of our senior fellows, Thomas Kleiner-Brokoff, is leading this, I think, very promising and innovative program. And at the same time, we're looking at ways that we can create stronger trade relations between the United States and Europe that might actually be a path to growth and help both sides stimulate their economies. In dealing with the emerging powers, Mark joked a little bit about our India Forum, but in fact, we've got a very active program focused on what we call the new swing states in the world. Turkey, Brazil, Korea, the countries that have aspirations and are looking for partners, and we feel that the United States and Europe need to reach out to them and bring them in. And it's one of the reasons we're putting such an emphasis on the South Atlantic program. And of course, we're also focusing on these current and emerging problems. China and its client states, and how the United States and Europe and others should respond to it. And one of the things we've been doing for the last 5 years is a forum in Stockholm, Sweden, on China that actually has turned out to be, I think, an important engine. The United States and Europe now have an official consultation on China and Asia, and we're moving our China Forum to Beijing next year for one meeting as a sign of how important it is. But it's also other areas. It's what's going on in North Africa, which I know is a much bigger problem for Europeans than Americans can ever understand. And frankly, sometimes we're a little cavalier about the issues here. But these are problems that could bedevil us for many, many years before. And then, of course, there's hardy perennials. It's what are we going to do about finishing off the transitions in the Balkans? How do we resolve the deep conflicts in the South Caucasus that are really so small that not everybody even feels that it's worth the time to pay attention to them, yet could be extremely explosive? And you have other problems right on the edge of Europe in Ukraine and Belarus. Those are all issues that GMF, one way or another, touches, brings our networks together, brings our expertise together. But the thing I think that we're most concerned about and most focused about is that next generation. I was really lucky. I was in my mid-30s, kind of a dopey politician foundation guy in Chicago, never been to Europe, and I got invited by the Adenauer Stiftung to come here. And it changed my life, because I really got to see a very different way of thinking about the world. And then through the American Council on Germany and a variety of other organizations that are here tonight, I had opportunities long before I came to GMF to get this perspective that really made a difference. And I'm looking out at the tables here, and I see lots of people who, one way or another, have been touched by these programs. Well, especially at an age when we're not going to one another's country for education, when there's too many other poles, when someone asked me the other day, who would be the Bob Kimmett and Bob Zoellick in today's State Department? Thinking back to those years, Bob, when you were really the driver of so much that was going on with Europe. You know, you get hard-pressed. And I think for us, one of the most important things is how do you maintain a group of people who actually see that there's value despite all of the problems, despite all of the challenges, despite all of the differences, that there's still more potential in working with Europe or with the United States, depending on where you stand, than any other place. And we're going to do this by continuing our MMF program, and I know we have many people here tonight. We have some programs that we do phase out, like our new lender program, but David Giel was one of the first participants in that, and we're going to look for other ways to do those kinds of programs that bring young people in transitioning countries to the United States and Europe. We have another very innovative program called the Young Strategists Forum that's bringing younger professionals from foreign ministries, defense ministries, legislative committees together to talk about how you think about strategy. But this, to me, is really crucial for the future of this organization. So it's 8:59. Let me just first thank the staff of GMF who did a great job in pulling this together. Heike and all of the people here, they're all at the back table. Let me thank our many partners that are here tonight. We really do see ourselves much more as the vehicle through which you operate, you express your great ideas than anything else, and we're just very appreciative to all of you. Guido, let me just say a last thank you to you tonight. I'm going to get at least 4 or 5 other opportunities over the next 3 months, or 4 months, maybe 5 months, to say thank you, but it's really special that so many people came out, and I think it's largely because of you. And finally, I want to thank Germany. It really was a special idea. Countries don't do this very often, and they don't do it with such an open mind, an open heart, and a willingness to take risks. I know taking risks is not something that we had a long lecture this afternoon by a distinguished member of the Foreign Ministry of Finance about the risk avoidance of Germans. But this was a risk, and I think it paid off. And I just want, from my heart, to say thank you to all of you.